So then, the Austrian Grand Prix. You know what? I originally thought that this was going to be a bit of a dud race, especially after the sprint. But the Grand Prix proved to pretty much be anything but. So what we're going to do is go through a couple of different sections to do with the Grand Prix. And yeah, then I'll give my overall reflections on the whole thing. Now, unlike a traditional Grand Prix, because of the way that this one ended, the story of how the race is won is a little bit different. For the race winner, George Russell, it was a matter of beating Lewis Hamilton off the line, keeping things clean, and just driving his own drive. And then when disaster happened for the guys up in front, he was the person who was able to claim it. Went around the outside, and the two of them limped back to the pit lane without losing much time to Oscar Piastri behind. Managed to keep those hard tyres in some kind of operating window, which meant that the faster mediums weren't able to keep up. And that's how it was won for George Russell. Similarly, Piastri managed to make the most of a altogether tricky start where he got squeezed by Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc. Held on without much damage and was able to stay clear of Sainz and Hamilton when the two of them were squabbling away after Hamilton picked up his penalties and there was a whole pit stop for Rory. In fact, it was Piastri who ratcheted out Hamilton to the stewards and got him the 5-second penalty that dropped him behind Sainz. But yeah, that's how second place was decided. Third place, Sainz. Well, when Lewis took off the track, he called him up on that, and Mercedes asked Lewis to give the place back, and then Lewis wasn't able to get back past again. So that's how the top three were decided in this race. But of course, you're probably coming here to hear my takes on the race-ending crash for Lando Norris and the one that demoted Max Verstappen to 5th, including a 10-second time penalty. And look, I'll just be straight up with this, is that I'm not a Max Verstappen fan. I've never been. I liked when he was winning races and breaking up the Mercedes monopolies. I liked that there was someone about the same age as me winning in Formula 1, even if it made me think that I was not doing much with my life. And I think that he can be a great representative for the sport, especially when it comes to things like the sim racing scene, like how Imola, he won the Nürburgring 24 in iRacing and also won the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. But I've always been critical of Max Verstappen for multiple different things. And I also like to refer to in jest the idea of the Verstappen rule, which is a term that I've seen attributed to many places because they're rule changes that happen because Verstappen does them. And I think that he kind of got away with one of them today, which Lando was kicking off about all the time. The moving under braking one. It was very clear that he was moving under braking. It was very clear that was happening. I mean, in some cases you can see the rain light lighting up at the back, which means that the hybrid is charging, which means that he's probably on the brakes or engine braking when he moves across, and you can tell it because it's such late defences. Now, as for the penalties, I mean, I initially thought that it was harsh that both of them would have been, in theory, given a 10-second time penalty for their roles in this. But then, the whole leaving the track and gaining an advantage stuff, or forcing the driver off the track, it got changed from a 5-second to a 10-second penalty for this season. So, all of a sudden it makes a bit more sense as to why you would potentially rule in that kind of way. But, yeah, I thought the stewards weren't being harsh enough on Max. I think when you've done that move 3 times and the 4th time you do it, you cause a crash that essentially ends the other driver's day and costs you a lot of time, causes a lot of damage, causes a VSC window, then yeah, I think that it should have been dealt with quicker. Now, I would also understand the idea of giving Lando Norris a track limits penalty, I would. But with that one, there's a little bit of a caveat to it. Because, of course, that was his 4th one, so it should have been a 5-second penalty. Or it would have been his 4th one. But he panicked and did lose time, gave the position back to Max, and it was him reacting to Max reacting to him braking, and yeah, it was messy. But what can you expect? I know some people are saying, oh, it was a really immature driver. Yeah, it was a silly move. Every driver makes silly moves. They make silly defences. Verstappen made a silly dive bomb in a similar way on Charles Leclerc, 5 years ago? And back then I called that silly, but then back then I kind of wanted Leclerc to do well. So, of course I was going to call it silly. I've been consistent in my criticism of Verstappen, but I don't know if I've been consistent when it comes to applying the rules, and that's where I'm settled with potentially my own biases. But my opinion is, yeah, penalty was justified. Potentially a harsher one since the end of the race, but yeah, I don't know if those kinds of contexts actually really apply in the F1 scheme of things. I mean, Lewis Hamilton, he got a stop go, didn't he, for causing a collision with Max Silverstone in 2021. Yeah, I think that 2 penalty points is a bit light for what Max did. I would have understood 2 penalty points for the moving under braking, and then 2 penalty points for causing the collision. But I also understand the stewards want to leave the Red Bull ring alive and not killed by the orange flare mob that shows up at the race. And speaking of Red Bull, Sergio Perez. Now, his race is one that's just bizarre. Does an almighty send in the first corner that leads to damage for Leclerc, which leads to damage to the front wing, which leads to Leclerc pitting on the first lap. Leclerc finishes down in 11th when all is said and done. But he just struggles throughout the race. I mean, Verstappen has the crash, he limps around, he changes onto the softs, he gets a 10-second time penalty, and he's still 17 seconds clear of Sergio at the end of it. Not only that, Perez is beaten by Hulkenberg in a Haas. He was only 5 seconds clear of the other Haas of Kevin Magnussen. And it's so strange to see. It is really bizarre to see. I don't know if it is that Perez has struggled with the ground effect here of F1 cars. I don't know if he's struggling more with the Red Bull as it's gone and developed over time. I mean, Verstappen is making those kinds of echoes for himself with the car over time. That's why he was testing the 2022 spec car around Imola. But it's just so odd. Especially when he's like less than 10 seconds ahead of Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, who... fair play to him, 250th start, it's just before his birthday and he gets 2 points. That's a good job. Holds off Pierre Gasly, and yeah, fine performance all around for those lot. But to be beaten by a Haas, nearly beaten by both of them, it's really not on. And they need to figure out what it is that's been going on there. But anyways, those are my thoughts and reflections. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.